Welcome to the K-State Pregame Show, brought to you by GoPowerCat.com and sponsored by Coldest.com and The Wooden Cork. Now let's head to the Cats and Dogs studio and your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to the K-State Pregame Show, brought to you by GoPowerCat.com. I am GPC publisher Tim Fitzgerald, and for the next hour or so, we're going to get you ready. Try to get you ready for Kansas State at Utah. K-State's coming off a, lackluster performance down in Stillwater, beating Oklahoma State, which is winless in the conference, 14-6. It wasn't a very inspiring performance, and anything close to that in this game, it'll be a disaster. Utah is sitting near the top of the Big 12, and it is sitting on the cusp of making the college football playoff. Winning this game is a must. Now, in all likelihood, they won't make it to the championship game, which actually works to their advantage, with losses to only Texas Tech, one of the nation's top teams, and BYU, which is one spot ahead of them in the polls, shows that they played a very good schedule and have two, if you want to say it this way, quality losses. They need to win this game. And if you're a K-State fan looking at how the Wildcats can win this game, you were offered no hope from what K-State did last weekend in Stillwater. It was going through the motions like we saw earlier in the year, except this time the defense forced enough turnovers and got enough stops to help K-State win. K-State's got to return to the team that was playing pretty good football not that long ago. And if they do that, they'll have a chance to hang around. I hate this matchup for Kansas State. I'm just going to say that up front. Utah is physical along the offensive line and loves to run the ball. They want to dictate the game both physically and in tempo around their bruising style under Kyle Whittingham. K-State has done okay against the run, but now without Toby Usansami at one defensive end spot and Austin Romaine out at middle linebacker, I question the run defense. Will they be able to put up enough effort to slow down a really good Utah offense? That includes a quarterback run game that should make K-State fans rather jealous. Defensively, they'll crowd the line of scrimmage and challenge K-State to try to run the ball and get after Avery Johnson when he tries to pass the ball. We're going to get into all of that. First up, we're going to take a look at Kansas State with Big B, Brian Hanley, former Kansas State offensive lineman on those historic 97 and 98 teams. After our break, we'll bring in Cole Carmody to look at Utah and how K-State fits together with them, and it's not exactly a flattering comparison. After the break, then we'll look at the Big 12. We'll listen to Chris Kleman's thoughts on the Utah Utes, and I'll give you my one thing to watch as we wrap up the show, and there's no need to mess around anymore. Let's get Brian Hanley going. He is standing by, and let's get this edition of the K-State Pregame Show off to a start. And now we welcome in Big B, Brian Hanley, host of the Big 12 Insiders, to the show to talk about where K-State's at this point of the season. Big B, while the season has seemed long, I can't believe, with that said, I can't believe we're in the 11th game.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally feels like K-State was struggling a month ago.
Right.
Not as long as it's been, almost 2 months now since that horrific start. They've somewhat recovered. How concerning was last week's performance at Oklahoma State to you? Because it looked like they kind of reverted to their earlier ways.
Yeah, I think it's super alarming because they just didn't look interested from the coaching staff down. They weren't prepared. They just didn't look interested. Like they were just going to show up and win. And we've seen that K-State team before that just thought they would just show up and win. And one game they struggled, another one they didn't win. So it's like, we're not that talented, guys.
Yep.
You got to go out there and put your best foot forward each and every week, because if you don't, outside of the turnovers against Tech, I thought K-State played a pretty good football game, and you lost by 3 touchdowns. So that's what I'm saying, man. When you play against good competition, it still may get away from you. You're just not as talented. You got to go out each and every week and put your best foot forward with this group.
I'm not sure if I said loss, but performance at Oklahoma State was pretty shoddy. They got by. At least they got by and won. That's something they weren't doing earlier in the year. But you did mention that they played well against Tech. And honestly, the last two scores, K-State was in panic mode and made mistakes. That's exactly what Tech does to you. It did it to Utah. But I did some radio earlier this week out in Salt Lake City. I love doing their show. And it was just pure doom and gloom sounding from me because I hate this matchup for K-State almost more than I hated the Texas Tech one. Not quite, but this is a physical, old school Utah team. And Kansas State is not physical, at least along the lines of scrimmage.
Yeah, Utah's got the best offensive line in the country. They got two guys that are probably going to go in the top 25 in the NFL draft from the offensive line. One guy is more than likely going to go in the top 10. So that's what we're dealing with. And the other guys are no slouches. So it's not just the two tackles. It's the entire offensive line of Utah is good. But for some perspective, I mean, Utah's tops in the conference at 278 yards a game rushing. That's almost 90 yards more than the next team of BYU, which I think fits. People would think BYU is a pretty good running team. Well, that's how much better Utah is. Now, I know those numbers got inflated, especially last week playing against Baylor, because Baylor's quit and they don't tackle and they refuse to tackle people. They just don't want to do it. I'm not going to tackle you if you run the football. So they decided that. So that's kind of where we are. And we saw some of that when we played Baylor. Like, they won't tackle you. Having said that, that's the problem, is because K-State, on the other hand, is below average against the run, giving up 152 yards a game. That's middle of the pack, a little below middle of the pack. And Utah has shown, Fitz, that if we only have to throw it 8 times, we'll only throw it 8 times. We'll just keep running it. And until you stop it, we're not going to stop. And that's why the matchup is so bad, where Tech, while Tech can run it and run it very well, they still want to throw the ball. Yes. Utah does not. Utah will, I mean, if they don't have to throw the ball in a game and they'll run it, they'll do it. Yep. And that's the difference. That's why the matchup is not great for Kansas State, because we haven't been great against the run. We weren't last week, until we got into the red zone. So it's just one of those things where, look, they just have to match the physicality. Yeah. I'm not sure they can, but you're going to have to do that first, and you're going to have to do it early, because that's one of the things Utah does, Fitz. They punch people in the mouth very early in the football game to kind of test the waters out. They throw a haymaker at you. Can you duck it? Can you take the punch? If you can, okay, now you're in a fight. If not, they'll keep throwing haymakers until you either get out of the way or they just knock you out.
What I loved about Baylor's performance is apparently they didn't know that the quarterback can run the ball. So they didn't even bother trying to tackle him. They thought it was illegal.
They did.
Oh, look, I love this brand of football Kyle Whittingham plays. Don't give me this, we got to be balanced 50-50 crap. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
If you run the ball every play and they can't stop it, you know what you do? You run the ball every play. And it's safer that way. You manage the game that way, and you completely demoralize your opponent. And you beat the pee-pee out of them. I was going to say another word, but I didn't say it. And that's what Utah does. And I appreciate that. So how does K-State try to manage that at the point of attack, Big B?
Well, I don't know.
They're missing their top defensive end and their middle linebacker.
Yeah, I don't know. First off, what I would say is the first thing K-State has to do is they've got to put some resources at the line of scrimmage. Right. They've got to say, okay, if you guys are going to run it, you're going to have to run it against a 7 and an 8-man box, because the one thing that Utah absolutely struggles to do is throw the ball deep down the field. Anything over 15 yards, they're completing like 18% of those passes. And that's not an exaggeration, people. I'm not just making that up. Literally 15 yards or further, they're completing 18% of their passes on the season. Well, okay, then get up and challenge them. That was what I would say. keep safeties at 10 yards and just say, look, if you're going to run it, you're going to have to run it through all of us. Now, they still might be able to do that, but that would be the one thing that I say is that you are not going to just run down our throat. We're going to put as many resources as possible at the line of scrimmage to stop you. You got to stay gap sound, though, because when that's the whole thing. When you bring up those type of resources, if one person gets out of their gap, it's a touchdown because there's nobody behind them to stop it. So that's the thing. Everybody's got to be gap sound. You have to be stout at the point of attack. But that's what Kansas State just needs to do, is just say, we're going to man up everything on the outside. I dare you to throw it over our head because I don't think you can. And we are going to stop the run. We are going to stop it. We're going to put all these guys up here. But that's easier said than done, because if you think that I'm the only person that has said that about Utah, you're crazy. Now, because I'm saying it, other coaches that get paid to do it for a living, I'm sure they're thinking it. Maybe they don't have the type of things that K-State has, or who knows. But devise a plan, slant and twist, not necessarily twist, just do a lot of slanting of the defensive line up front to try to confuse them the best you can, bring run blitzes, do those kinds of things, and let the chips fall where they may. And if they throw it over your head a couple times, then live with it, because they're not going to continue to complete those passes. That would be the worst thing that could happen, Fitz. One time they throw it over our head, they score a touchdown, and people are up in arms, and then K-State, well, we got to back off. No, make them continue to throw it over your head, because consistently they have proven they can't do it. So maybe they do it twice in a game. Okay, great. But if you shut down the run game, which is what they want to do, make them keep making those passes. You got to take away something. You can't take away everything every week. That's what I would do if I was K-State. Just make them throw it over your head. And if they complete a few, okay, make them keep doing it.
There's no scenario where you don't put the run first.
No.
If they hit you over the top twice, you're behind, and guess what they're going to want to do?
Run the football.
So you're pretty much going to have to figure it out. And if K-State is competitive or somehow wins in this contest, I'm going to name my MVP right now, Gunnar Maldonado. That kid's going to have a long day.
Yes.
He's going to be playing a little body up towards the line of scrimmage, trying to take down running backs all day or assisting on it. Someone that's on the training staff that isn't going to Salt Lake, have the ice bath ready at 11 p.m. when the team returns, and just carry Gunner and throw him in the water. Maybe just place him. Yeah, this is going to be an incredibly physical game, the most physical of the season, including the Tech game. And I think, everyone complains about this team and, the weaknesses and that they're not very good. And I get all that. But I think what bothers me the most about this, Big B, is this. This was K-State style at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never seen a K-State team go into a game and say, yeah, we're probably not physical enough. Yeah. And that's the reality. They're not. And I don't think there's a switch they can flip to make themselves physical magically. They're just not that kind of team, unfortunately. So let's take it over to the offense now. This is a really solid physical defense. How do you get around what Utah does on the other side of the ball? Because K-State's going to have to score some points.
Well, and that's the thing, is that Utah is a physical team, but they have allowed some rushing yards to teams this year.
Yeah.
I mean, they're giving up 143 yards rushing on the ground. So there are opportunities. We're kidding ourselves if we don't think that teams aren't able to run the ball. The only problem is Kansas State only runs for 137 yards a game. So that's a problem.
Yeah.
But there are opportunities. And even more opportunities is that Utah's back end is below average. And we saw that last week against Baylor. They are below average. Now, they get after the quarterback, which is a problem. But Utah doesn't try to they're not disguising stuff. Like, they bring pressure. They play man-to-man on the outside, and they dare you to throw it over their head. Well, Baylor did it all game, and there have been other teams that did it. And so if they don't necessarily allow you to run the football, if you can get the ball out quick and hit things in space and, hit gaps and things of that nature, or if you can just block it up and protect, you have an opportunity. But the Utah defense, while is very good and it is physical, it has holes. But K-State got to be able to exploit them. Not having Jace Brown is a problem.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Because he's the one guy that could literally run past them. I shouldn't say the one guy, but he is a guy that can run past them and beat them over the top that Utah would have no answer for. They would literally have no answer. Now, you could say, well, they would bracket coverage him, keep a safety over the top. Well, then you need another guy to beat one-on-one coverage. It's a lot easier doing it that way, Fitz, than it is when that guy's not playing in the game. So K-State's there's gonna be some opportunities. They just have to be willing to take advantage of it. Don't be so vanilla on offense. Don't be so predictable. I mean, it's one thing to be vanilla. It's another thing to be vanilla and predictable. Do those kinds of things, all hands on deck. And there's a path to moving the football. You just have to be willing to do it. And you got to be able to block them. If you can block them and block them just getting in the way sometimes, if you can do that, we got a chance. We do have a chance, but they got to be willing to do that.
That's called the husband in the kitchen offense. Just get in the way.
Yeah.
Just get in the way. I know some of you are going to think that's sexist, but I've been on the receiving end of being in the way. It's not pretty, guys. It's not pretty, especially at this time of year with Thanksgiving. Jace Brown is out. You mentioned that. That's huge for Kansas State. He's been the big play threat, whether it's been him as the Wildcat, which K-State mysteriously stopped running, or, going downfield. The only other person that's done that for K-State this season is J.B. Bradley, who is supposedly coming back. I'm going to be real honest on this pregame show. I think Chris Kleman said that for Utah. Last week, he seemed to be almost gone for the season, and this week he's back. I'll see. He don't bother checking the availability report because K-State is planning on him being available. That's how these things work. Are you planning on being available? Yes. Will he be? Well, that's not what you're asking. We'll see if he plays. If he plays, it gives him something. But I know this. Guys, particularly tight ends, can't be dropping passes.
No.
K-State's got to take advantage of every downfield opportunity they get to try to loosen this up. And maybe man coverage will allow Avery Johnson to get free and run a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I say that, but I got to see that again. But that's got to be part of this offense. There's not a path to victory for me in this game that doesn't have Avery Johnson running for like 60 plus yards.
Yeah. He's
going to have to make them account for him and change how they defend. We'll see if he can. I don't know. I think this offensive line showed it's back to its old ways, and it was awful at Oklahoma State. And if it's awful in Salt Lake on Saturday, it's going to be an awful day, period.
Yeah, it will. It absolutely will be, because like I said, Utah doesn't try to trick you on defense. They really don't. They line up. They're going to bring pressure from time to time, but they're just going to say, we're going to line up and just beat the man that is across from us. And if they do that and they're able to consistently do that, which we saw Oklahoma State's defensive line do, which is, let's just call it, that's pathetic. And if that happens against Utah, K-State won't be able to move it. And that's the scary thought, is that we're looking at a football game. I know it's doom and gloom, but we're looking at a game that if the line plays like it played last week, and again, that's not an outlier because the line has played like that several times this year. If they do that, K-State won't move the ball. And that's crazy to think about a Kansas State football team. And again, there are paths to being able to do it, but the line's just got to show up. If they're not going to show up at all, and they didn't last week, well, this is what you get.
Yep.
This is what you get. And they've got to be able to put this thing together to just say, okay, guys, let's do something. And it's also on the coaches to figure out what they do well and devise ways to continue to do that. Here's a guy that I think that can be key, not necessarily offensive lineman, but I think Lincoln Cure can be a big part of the offense this week. If they just put him in the slot, he's going to get man coverage and just say, look, whatever you're used to doing, whatever you do, you're an athlete. Go beat that guy in front of you on this route and get him involved. They're going to have him singled up with either a linebacker or a safety, go allow him to go make plays. And I'm not saying that nobody else can do that, but you got this guy that's not really a tight end. He's not really a wide receiver, more of an H-back type of person at this point in his career anyway. You know he's a big-time athlete. Let him go play football.
Yeah.
And if he can't do it, then he can't do it. Fine. But at least give him the opportunity, because I think that's where Kansas State can take advantage of Utah, is in that specific position. Go do that and see what happens. I mean, you
make a really great point. I think the thing Lincoln Kier could bring to this game more than anything else is doing a Travis Kelce impression. And what I mean by that is when the play breaks down, you get off your route and go help the quarterback.
Yes.
You make yourself available as best you can. And that big body should be able to use it. You played basketball, young man, post him up, make yourself available. If he does that in this game, it's going to change the equation a little bit, because he's a tough matchup for anyone. The speed, height, and his physicality he's beefed up. It's going to be tough for a corner if he's got stuck with him, or even some safeties to manage that. So they're going to have to find whatever their small advantages are and pry those open. You just got to take anything you can get and try to work it until they have to change how they're defending.
Yeah.
I don't have a good feeling about this, Big B. I just don't. I think this is going to be another game in which the fans will be up in arms, not realizing that Utah is an exceptional team. But in defense of the fans, they're also not used to seeing their team lose, handily to exceptional teams. They're used to being competitive in recent years. Can K-State compete in Salt Lake City?
I think they can, but it's going to be tough, man. Utah's playing for something, something big here. They're looking to try to, number one, they're not out of it and getting to Arlington. That's number one. But number two, they're trying to get to the college football playoff. And their thinking is, whether Kansas State is good or not, the perception still around the country is Kansas State's a good program. You blow Kansas State out, that's going to mean something to college football. Whether people have watched Kansas State or not, the college football playoff committee, in their minds, Kansas State's still a really good program.
You're right.
We know that. And Utah blew them out? Oh, okay. Well, then what should we start thinking about Utah? That's what they're playing for. Kansas State got to be able to match that intensity. My problem is, Fitz, have they really done that all year? They did for Tech for 2.5 quarters. They matched that intensity, but then Tech kind of does what it does, is they just keep playing and you can't. And if you stop or your intensity drops a little bit, or your attention to detail, then we're going to blow you out. And that's exactly what happened. Utah's the same way, except Tech kind of does it methodically. Utah does not. Utah tries to knock you out in the first 5 minutes of the game, especially at home. That is what they have done all year long. That's what they try to do to you. So they have to match that intensity early and be ready to play. And I know I harp on the offensive line. I know that I'm critical of the offensive line. Number one, they deserve it, but this is their game. This is their game. You could say that each and every week, Fitz, that, it's down to the offensive line. They got to play well, which is true, but this is their game. If they can play physical and give our team a chance, again, averaging 4 yards a carry. I know some people get up in arms about that. You won't take 4 yards on first down?
Take it.
I mean, that's the whole thing. If we can just do that consistently and not get the averages swayed by, well, he had a 35-yard run and then the rest of the time he was getting 2 yards, that won't work. You have to consistently keep ahead of the chains. If they can do that, yeah, they got a chance, Fitz. They do.
They do. That is Brian Hanley, host of the Big 12 Insiders, and he knows physical football because there was a day long, long ago when he too would knock you on your ass. If you have any complaints about this segment, please direct them to Ryan Gilbert at gopowercat.com. He writes my script. I just threw him under the bus big time. After the break, Cole Carmody talks about the Utah Utes, and it might take a while because there's a lot to say, because this team is pretty darn good. You're watching the K-State pregame show, and we will be right back.
Looking for the rarest bottles at the best price? Experience the best alcohol delivery service. At Wooden Court, we have your favorite bottles in stock and ready to be delivered to your door.
Visit woodencork.com and use the code LIFEOFFITS for your special discount.
Welcome back to the K-State pregame show as we get you ready for the Cats and the Utah Utes on Saturday afternoon out in Salt Lake City. And now to give us a little breakdown action of the Utah Utes is our own Cole Carmody. Cole, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. The last time we did a show, Fitz, people said that my backdrop was blank, and so I decided to move houses, get a brand new backdrop. No K-State stuff. Why any of that when you got the Chiefs in the background? Gilbert will be
all because of that? All because of
Yes, that's exactly why. That's exactly.
I don't blame you at all. I like your backdrop. I like your new place. Hope it doesn't get black mold.
That's the whole
old place. Okay, Cole, speaking of black mold, that performance by K-State last week wasn't good, but is it a precursor to what could go wrong at Utah, or is that maybe just a one-off?
It's tough to say. I mean, you look at what K-State's offense did. I'll start there. I mean, there wasn't very many explosive plays, and Chris Kleman talked about it at his press conference on Monday that this is not a very explosive offense. And I tend to agree with him. Without Jace Brown and obviously without Dylan Edwards, who you've been without the whole entire season, you really don't have true speed threats. And I love Ryan Gilbert. Don't get me wrong. Ryan Gilbert brought up Sterling Lockett as a speed threat on the PowerCat Questions podcast. And if that is your true speed threat, then that is a problem. I think K-State's going to have to find a way to get more guys into the game. But Fitz, there is a path for victory for K-State. If there is one, I think they need to play Utah's game. And we'll get into how they do that. But I think that these two teams can be very similar offensively. And if K-State wants to win, they're going to have to run the football. And you know what Utah does a really good job at? They run their quarterback. And that's what Avery Johnson is going to have to do. It's going to have to be one of those games where Avery Johnson rushes the football 15 times.
Utah would just assume run the ball every play if they could. They throw it enough to keep you honest. Their quarterbacks, plural, can both run. They're a problem for a team like Kansas State that honestly has done okay against the run, but this Utah offensive line is completely dominating. They're dominant up front. Cole, I don't see how K-State holds up in that comparison.
Yeah, they're suffocating, right? Like you watched that game against Baylor, and it was a one-score game towards in the fourth quarter. It was a one-score game, and they were just suffocating. I mean, the long runs that Utah broke off. You mentioned their quarterbacks. I will start there. Bird Ficklin. I mean, this is a kid who really just appeared on the scene, and he's a Texas kid, kind of was under the radar, and Fitz, the last game he ran for 166 yards on 6 carries. That is a whopping 27.7 yards per carry. I'm not expecting him to do that. We know how bad Baylor's defense is. We saw it firsthand. They are a bad defense. Let's just call it how it is. But Utah took advantage of that, and they suffocated them. They could not hold up, and eventually the dam broke, and the water came rushing in, and Utah they kept running the ball, and they broke their spirit. That is going to be the thing I watch for the most is like, will they break K-State's spirit? And I know that that's not necessarily something you can measure.
Yeah.
But if K-State can hold up and they can just hang in the fight, I mean, there is a chance for K-State to stay in this game. They just have to hang in there, and they got to get back up off the mat. I mean, that's the big thing. You're going to get hit, but can you get back up off the mat?
So we know the Utah defense has been pretty good, but they've had some issues with the passing game. Baylor moved the ball through the air a little bit.
Baylor over 400 yards passing, and Sawyer Robertson's super dynamic, but they're going to play man coverage, and that's one thing they're known for. They're going to play straight up. They're going to play man coverage. They get after the quarterback. They have 27 sacks as a team. I would say that that's probably a pretty good indication of where they are. John Henry Daly is the leader. He's got 9.5. Yeah, I mean, they're going to do what they do, right? There's not going to be a lot of smoke and mirrors. They're going to line up and try and beat you. And, the secondary has shown some holes at times. And you kind of look at the games that they've played, and it sounds, pretty simple, but when they've lost, they really haven't been very good defensively at all. And when they've won, it's typically because they've been, dominant on that side. And so they're kind of a hard team to make out, because when they win big. But when they lose, they really don't look like that good of a team.
Yeah, you're right. Chase Brown's gone for the year. Does K-State have the receiving weapons to test the back end of that Utah defense?
Well, as far as taking the top off of defense, right now, it's hard to say that they do. Getting J.B. Bradley back, I think, actually will make a pretty big difference, because with him and Jerron Tibbs, you at least have guys who have experience in power conference games, who have played in, against really good opponents. We'll see how much J.B. Bradley plays, but I mean, this is going to be the Jerron Tibbs show. And I look at what 12 can do, Fitz, and I think this is a really good opportunity for him, not only to showcase that he can, play well against a really good Utah defense, but showcase to K-State, hey, if Chase Brown does intend to go into the NFL, or he does intend to move on in the modern age of college football, he can be a guy who K-State can rely on next year, because a lot of folks forget he does have another year of eligibility. Yep. So this is a really big game for Jerron Tibbs and for Avery Johnson as well, to say this could be the combination that really helps K-State next year and in the future.
Okay, you mentioned it. Utah likes to play man on the outside so that they can come after the quarterback. That also can leave you exposed to the quarterback run game. Is that something K-State's going to be able to cash in? I would expect them probably to spy Avery Johnson, but he has to be effective running the ball in those situations.
I think that what K-State needs to do is they need to go back and look at that Texas Tech film, because Texas Tech really did not spy Avery Johnson. There was very few times that they spied Avery Johnson because they felt like they could get to him. The question if you're Utah is, do you spy him? Because if you spy him, Fitz, you only got 11 defenders. And so obviously there's going to be a defender who is either one-on-one with their guy on the outside. The math doesn't always work in your favor if you have a quarterback spy. And so I'll be interested to see what they do. I tend to think that they'll spy Avery Johnson. And if they do that, then there is going to be a matchup where receivers simply have to win. Like, this is a week where if you want to be a receiver at Kansas State, you need to put something out there. Without the number one guy out there, I'm really looking at those guys. And conventional wisdom would say, look at Garrett Oakley, look at Lincoln Cure. I get Lincoln Cure is playing wide receiver, but I really look at Jerron Tibbs and J.B. Bradley, and even a guy, behind them, whoever that may be, Adonis Moise. I'm looking at Adonis. Step up. Think about what happened with Jace Brown. Jace Brown played because there were some injuries. Yep. I'm not saying that Adonis has that same capability, but we don't know. He's been hurt too. So I'm interested to see who that third wide receiver is who's going to step up, because that's the guy who will be single covered and have the best chance at making a play on the ball more times than not.
Now, you mentioned Daly a little bit ago. 9.5 sacks, 12 tackles for loss, 3 forced fumbles. This is another disruptive rush end that Kansas State has to face. And the tackles were pretty dreadful last week. Cole, I'm worried about Avery Johnson's health and safety, to be real honest.
Yeah, they have to figure something out on the offensive line. And, I understand why they played those guys last week. I really do. You're going up on paper against a team who's not supposed to be any good. You've got some guys who have been, let's just call it how it is, not good. You got them back from injury. Well, if they're fully healthy, maybe they'll put something on display that will show some kind of cause for them playing the rest of the year. But I think K-State found out that, quite frankly, that the JB Nelsons and I'll call them out, I don't care, Tarantinos, like those two guys, they're probably not guys who need to be in the rotation at this moment in time. And if that means you have to play 6 offensive linemen against Utah, I don't think we're at the point where we're going to see 5 guys, but I think we could see 6. And you got your left tackle in John Pastore, you got your right tackle in Andrew Langan. Leave those guys out there. If you want to play, JB Nelson for Taylor Portier, that's fine. Put him in there for a few snaps. But those two guys, to me, need to take 100% of the snaps. And if they don't, you better feel damn good that your backup can go in there and play. Because for the most part, those two guys have been solid.
Yep, I agree. What is K-State's path to victory? Is there one?
The thing with K-State this week is that Utah plays the way K-State used to.
Yep.
I mean, you watch
it, actually.
It is. It's very impressive the way they control the clock, the way they run the football. They get in your face. They're physical. They're not the best team in the Big 12. They might be the second best team. I know that BYU beat them, but those two teams play right now. I think Utah has a chance. But here's where I'm at, Fitz. Like, we saw the physicality of Texas Tech. Utah is close, but they aren't as good as Texas Tech. Could they beat them on a given Saturday? I think they could. But right now, they're not at the same level as Texas Tech. And I think that K-State needs to take those lessons that they learned and apply them to the game against Utah. Take care of the football. Number one, take care of the football. You got to be more physical up front. K-State was a physical team against Texas Tech. They have to be, I'm not going to say the more physical team, but they have to match the physicality of Utah on the offensive end. And if they can beat Utah at their own game, like I said at the top of the segment, control the clock, man, I think there's a path to victory. That doesn't mean that they're going to win, but if you're looking for any kind of hope, they have to control the clock. And on the defensive end, you got to load the box. I mean, stack the box and make Devin Dampier, who we haven't even talked about yet, make him throw the ball. Because when he throws the ball down the field, he's not as accurate of a passer. So load the box, stop the run, and make them throw it. And the last point here, Fitz, is get on top early. Because if you get on top early, this is not a team that likes to come play from behind. That's easier said than done, but you got to get ahead and take them off schedule. And if you can do that, you can stay in the fight.
Well, you brought me to Dampier. Perfectly done, Cole. This dude can be really good. Really, really. He's a hyper athlete, but also he can be bad.
Yeah.
He's had some games where he's just really not performed well. Is K-State capable of applying that kind of pressure, keeping him bottled up, lacking Osunsami and Romaine? Are they good enough to get that done?
They got to stop the run. Right? Like they would prefer to throw the ball 5 times a game. This is an Army, right? They run a completely different offense, but they have the same mentality. They are going to get downhill. If you can force him to throw the ball, then you can get to him, right? It's simple math, right? The more the quarterback drops back to pass, the better chance you have of getting to the quarterback. I was really impressed with K-State's edge rushers on Saturday. I know it was against Oklahoma State, and that's one of the worst offensive lines in all of power football. But Ryan Davis was unblockable, and I'm kind of to the point with him. Fitz, I'm not sure if he's not better than Topi Osunsami. Like he's turning into a really good football player, and so he might be an X factor in this game, right? The linebackers obviously have to come to play. Without Austin Romaine, getting another game of experience for Asa Newsome is really important. I thought he showed some flashes on Saturday. He might be the best linebacker that K-State has. Obviously, Desmond Purnell is a dude, but as we've talked about at lengths on this, at Go Power Cat, he's a little out of position. And so finding a way to contain the run game and force them to pass, there is a chance that K-State could force Utah off schedule, force Dampier to throw the ball, and they find a way to do what they've done, Fitz, and that's create turnovers.
Yes, indeed. As I told Big B, that this is going to be one of those games where the K-State safeties are going to have to be physical. They're going to be involved. Get the cold tubs ready for when they get home, because these guys are going to really pay the price trying to stop this run coming up to the line of scrimmage while not getting burned deep. Good luck with that. I really like this Utah team. And I think what I like about it, Cole, is exactly what you said a little bit ago. They kind of are vintage K-State, really good on the line, run first. The difference is Bill Snyder liked to try to keep balance. Kyle Whittingham doesn't give 2 craps about that. If he can run the ball every play, demoralize you, bruise you, beat you, he's going to do it. And they're capable of that. And they've done that to a lot of other teams. We'll see if K-State can hold up. I don't know. I'm astonished to see K-State in a road game, not against a Texas Tech, Look, Utah's good. I think they are the second best team in the conference, even though they lost to BYU. They're second most dangerous, maybe.
Yeah.
What I want to say. K-State's a 17.5-point underdog on the road. That shows the growing respect the nation is having for Utah, and also emphasizes why this game's so important to the Utes. They don't need to just win. They need to win emphatically and make a statement to kind of get the attention of the committee, because despite K-State's issues, they are a brand that people recognize around the country. And if you can blow them out, it might help your cause a little bit.
Yep, it's going to be a tough game for K-State. There's no doubt. I thought the stat was interesting. Chris Kleman is 3-1 as a double-digit underdog straight up. There's only been 4 games where he has been a double-digit underdog, and he has won 3 of those games. That is shocking to me. And so I don't know. I don't think K-State wins this game, Fitz, but I do think there is an opportunity for a real bounce back effect. And if K-State was playing anybody else, I'd probably pick them to win. Outside of Texas Tech, I'd probably pick them to win. But this is going to be a real tough place to play. On top of that, we haven't even talked. The altitude factor is going to be something to monitor there. But yeah, Utah is really good. So there's a path to victory, but they're going to have to play perfect, and they're going to have to catch Utah slacking. I do think it's possible they overlook K-State. You look at what they did last week. You watch the film. It's hard to tell the difference between K-State and Oklahoma State, but you watch the film against TCU, you watch the film against Texas Tech. There's a team in there who can compete with Utah. So we'll find out on Saturday.
Supposed to be a cool, crisp afternoon in the mountains of Utah for K-State and Salt Lake. Yes, and Utah in Salt Lake. Cole, thank you very much for getting us ready for this game. And after the break, we will listen to Chris Kleman a little bit. Of course, we'll have your Big 12 schedule. It's a pretty packed schedule. Oddly, 2 teams are off with 1 more week to go. It's kind of weird. Then after that, I'll have our one thing to watch, which, as I sit here right now, I haven't decided upon. Let's find out together what that is right after this break on the K-State Pregame Show.
From the house to the car to your tailgate, Coldest.com offers elite insulated tumblers. Imagine yourself standing in the football stadium's parking lot, and you want to keep your drink cold or hot. Coldest gets the job done. They're leak-proof, come in numerous designs and sizes, holding up to 46 ounces. And here's the best part. With your Coldest mug, no one needs to know what you're really drinking. Coldest.com. Use the code LIFEOFFITZ for a 10% discount.
Now let's take a look at the schedule in the Big 12 for Week 13 of the 2025 season. There are 7 conference games this weekend, starting with a game against neighbors. Kansas, in search of bowl eligibility at 5-5, heads to Iowa State to meet the 6-4 Cyclones at 11 a.m. on FS1. Then, Arizona hosts Baylor in the weekly game on TNT. At 3, Kansas State, also 5-5 and looking for the needed win number 6 to go to a bowl, plays at Utah on ESPN2. The Utes, who are 8-2, are seeking to stay on track for a possible playoff bid. There are 2 other 3 p.m. games. TCU visits Houston for a game on Fox, and Oklahoma State plays at UCF on ESPN+. Then the day wraps up with a pair of interesting 7 p.m. games. Arizona State goes to Colorado on ESPN2. And in the Big 12 Insiders Game of the Week, BYU, at 9-1 on the season and also seeking a playoff bid, travels to Cincinnati, which has tumbled to 7-3, to meet in a nationally televised game on Fox. That's it for your preview of this weekend's Big 12 football action. Now let's return to Fitz in the Cats and Dogs studio.
Welcome back to the show. That was your Big 12 schedule for this week. It's a crowded schedule. Oddly, 2 teams are off, including Texas Tech, with just 1 more week to go in the regular season. I can't figure out the Big 12 schedule. And honestly, I can't figure out a way for Kansas State to win this game. I just can't. I don't like what I'm seeing from K-State based on last week and how they fit together with Utah. Chris Kleman knows exactly how good Utah is, and he took some media questions from myself and others on Monday at the press conference about the Utes. And let's cut to some Chris Kleman sound before I wrap it up with your one thing to watch.
Obviously, going back and looking at the film from Saturday, we didn't play as well as we need to and capable of offensively, and we've got to correct some things and do a little bit better, much better job in a number of phases, but especially on first down to give us an opportunity to create some third and shorts. I thought defense played really well, especially once we got into the plus territory. And, I know this, that we willed our way to that victory, not playing our best football, which told me an awful lot about the character of our guys. A couple things happened in there with guys that have been in our program an awful long time, making big-time plays on defense. And then, we had a drive in the fourth quarter when we needed to have a drive and had 2 fourth-down conversions. I thought Oak came up big on a play. I thought Joe Jackson came up big on a play. And so all that being said, not playing to our capabilities and best football, we found a way to win, and that's what we had to do. But we got to turn the page fast because we have a really good opponent at their place. And, we watched the film yesterday morning or early afternoon and then flipped it quickly because this is going to be a really difficult environment to play in and a really good team.
What does Utah do so well that gives you concern?
Well, offensively, I think offensive line is as good as offensive line in the Big 12. Plus, you throw in tight ends that can play as O-linemen. They're running the football at will against people, and a lot of different guys carrying the football, quarterbacks, different running backs, wide receivers, so they keep you off balance because there's the amount of different runs that they have, and they control the clock, keep it away from your offense. Then on defense, you kind of know what you're going to get. They're going to come after you and play a lot of man coverage, do a really good job up front, and so for us, we've got to be able to manufacture drives. We've got to be able to stay on the field. I mean, the normal things of staying on the field and getting off the field. But we've got to be really good in the red zone, and we've got to be really good on the road of taking care of the football.
What's your receiver room look like right now?
Well, we think we're going to get Jerron Bradley back this week, which will help us a bunch. So if we can get Jerron back, he should practice either today or tomorrow. Still have Tibbs, still have Sterling, still have Adonis. We can getting Jerron back will help us kind of stay the course there. But obviously we lose a really explosive player with Jace done for the year. We'll lose him as an explosive player. So it's going to be probably not as many explosive plays without Jace, but hopefully still a really efficient wide receiver group.
Chris, how creative do you think Matt and everybody on offense will have to be this week when you are down so many playmakers?
I think there's kind of twofold on that. Yes, some creativity, but also some, hey, we got to go back to the basics and be able to play some downhill run game and realize that maybe getting us 3 yards, getting us 4 yards, and getting into 3rd and 2 and 3rd and 3, where then Avery becomes a bigger factor, running the football and throwing the football. Sometimes when you have everybody and you misfire on something in your 2nd and 10, it puts you behind the sticks the whole time. We've got to do some really good things to be into 2nd and 5. And so I know that we're going through some stuff and we're talking up there. I've been a part of a few of the conversations about how we can be creative, but in the same respect, you're going to have to be able to block these guys, and it's going to be a challenge. So we've got to play our best at tight end and O-line and even some of the wide receivers on the perimeter with their blocking too.
That was Kansas State coach Chris Kleman talking about the Utah Utes and what his team will have to do to win. It's going to be a tough matchup for the Wildcats as K-State takes its final true road trip of the season, heading out to Salt Lake City for a 3 p.m. game. It'll be on ESPN2. I hope you're revved up to watch it. I'm hoping that K-State puts in a little bit better effort than they did last week. If they don't, it's going to be a miserable day. But if they do, they have a chance here. And what is my one thing to watch for the Wildcats? Well, if K-State wants to hang around in this game, they have to disrupt Utah's run game. Now, Utah has an elite offensive line, as the guys have told you throughout this show. 2 possible first-round draft choices along that offensive line. The Utes are really good up front, and they can clear plenty of running room for backs and quarterbacks to do some damage. K-State's got to be able to slow that down and force the Utah quarterbacks to throw the ball, because that's where they're not quite as good. If you can deter that run game to a degree and get them into situations they don't want to be in, you have a chance to hang around. And to go with that, you better be effective throwing the ball downfield, and that won't be easy without Chase Brown. As I said, I'm not a big fan of this matchup for K-State, but we will see what happens. After all, the Wildcats are 5-5 overall. They're 4-3 in the conference. They have one more crack next week, if they don't win this one, to get bowl eligible when Colorado comes to town for a game that is honestly much bigger for K-State than Colorado, but also Colorado is a very athletic team. And if K-State doesn't come to play, they'll lose that game too. We'll see how this season shakes out. Can the Wildcats rescue any type of dignity out of a season that has just not gone as they expected? They've done a pretty good job of recovering after that 1-3 start. A lot of us, including me, didn't expect them to be able to get bowl eligible. But here they are on the cusp of that. One win away with 2 games to go. And while I don't think it'll be this game, I do think it could be and should be next week against Colorado. And while I know fans won't be excited about a 6-6 season, nor should you be, I do want to note that 5-4 in the conference puts you in the upper half of the league. And if there's one thing to kind of smile about, it'll be at least you held up well in conference play. Until next week, when I will get to see you at the Bill, I hope to see you in Salt Lake City. It's going to be a fun game, a fun environment, and a first trip ever out to Rice Eccles for myself. I'm excited. And then after that, Thanksgiving comes and one more football game when I will hopefully see you at the Bill.
Thank you for watching the K-State Pregame Show. Make sure you're subscribing to this YouTube channel, and please share your thoughts in the comments. Also, please support our sponsors, Coldest.com and WoodenCork.com, and remember the code LifeOfFits for your discount. This has been a Go Power Cat and Spirit Street production.